What is really happening to the NBA YoungBoy and Lil Durk beef? So here's where NBA YoungBoy and Lil Durk stand right now in 2026, and the crazy part. They're not even actively going back and forth. Right now, in August 2026, NBA YoungBoy and Lil Durk are not beefing. There are no new diss tracks. There are no social media posts going at each other. There are no subliminals hidden in bars. To look at what's happening on the surface, you'd think the beef is completely dead. But that's the most dangerous part about where this situation stands. Because this beef isn't loud anymore. It's cold. It's quiet. And it's still destroying both of their careers in ways that nobody's really talking about. Let me explain what's actually happening right now. NBA YoungBoy got out of federal prison earlier this year. He served his 23 months for gun charges and was released. That's the first major thing to understand. The man is free. He's back in the world. He can record music, he can perform, he can rebuild his career. But the moment he stepped out of that prison, the beef with Lil Durk was waiting for him like a ghost that never went away. When YoungBoy came home, people thought he'd just move forward. New music. New features. Rebuilding his brand. But that's not how it works when you're connected to something like this. The streets don't forget. The culture doesn't forget. And the tension between him and Durk is still there, just sleeping underneath everything. In September, YoungBoy performed in Houston. During the show, he dissed Lil Durk on stage. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't like he went out there to start a war. But he did it anyway. He couldn't help himself. Because even though they're not actively going at each other, even though there's no battle happening, the disrespect is still there. The tension is still there. And YoungBoy felt like he had to remind everyone that he's not scared, that he's not backing down. That single moment on stage in Houston set something in motion. A week later, YoungBoy gets booked to perform at the United Center in Chicago. This is huge. This is his first time performing in Chicago in 5 years. Chicago is Lil Durk territory. Durk built his entire brand in Chicago. OTF, his whole movement, it's rooted in Chicago. So YoungBoy coming to perform there is a statement. It's saying I'm free. I'm bigger than this beef. I can perform anywhere, even in your city. The United Center promotes the show. Tickets are sold. Fans are excited. People bought flights. People bought hotel rooms. People took time off work. Everything is set for this concert to happen. Then, a day before the show, the United Center cancels it. They cite violence concerns. They're worried that the situation between YoungBoy and Durk could result in actual violence at the venue. So instead of taking the risk, they shut it down. 1 day's notice. All those fans who flew in. All those people who paid for hotels. All that money spent. Gone. That's the current state of this beef. It's so toxic, so dangerous, that a major venue would rather lose the revenue and disappoint thousands of people than risk what could happen if YoungBoy performs in Durk City. Now, let's talk about Lil Durk's situation right now. Durk is in jail. He's facing serious charges. Murder for hire charges connected to an attempted hit on Quando Rondo. This isn't small. This isn't a minor legal issue that's going to go away with a fine or probation. These are charges that could result in decades in prison. Durk is literally fighting for his freedom in a courtroom while his legacy in the streets is still affecting other people's lives. So you've got this weird dynamic where YoungBoy is free but can't perform in certain cities because of the beef. And Durk is locked up, completely removed from the game, but his presence, his crew, his movement is still so powerful that it's limiting what YoungBoy can do. Think about what that means for YoungBoy's career. The man just got out of prison. He should be on a major tour. He should be performing for his fans. He should be making money. He should be rebuilding his name in the culture. But instead, he's running into situations where venues are canceling shows because they're afraid of what could happen. That's not fair. That's not just about the beef anymore. That's about YoungBoy's ability to work, to make a living, to move forward with his life. And here's the thing that makes it even worse, YoungBoy can't control it. He can't prevent venues from canceling. He can't make people stop caring about his beef with Durk. All he can do is show up and perform. But that's apparently too much of a risk now. There's been attempts to fix this. 21 Savage, who's respected in the culture, has been trying to mediate. He's had conversations with YoungBoy. He's had conversations with Durk. He's tried to find a way for them to reconcile or at least come to some kind of understanding. But according to recent reports, those efforts aren't working. The situation is trending downwards. Every attempt at peace just reveals how deep the rift really is. Because here's what people miss about the current situation: this beef isn't active, but it's absolutely real. It's not being fueled by new diss tracks or public drama. It's being fueled by something deeper. It's being fueled by identity. By respect. By history. By the fact that no matter what both of them say publicly about moving on, there's clearly something underneath that they can't get past. When YoungBoy got out of prison in April, he was probably thinking about his career. Thinking about recording. Thinking about rebuilding. But by September, he's still dealing with reminders of Durk. He's still seeing his movement affect his ability to perform. He's still having to acknowledge this situation. And Lil Durk? Durk is sitting in a cell dealing with federal charges. The beef with YoungBoy is the last thing he should be worried about. He's got real problems. Real legal consequences. Real pressure. But you know what? The beef is still there. Even in prison, even when he's dealing with his own stuff, the conflict with YoungBoy is still a factor in his life somehow. That's the crazy part about where this stands. Neither of them is actively doing anything. There's no new music addressing each other. There's no public feuding. There's no drama. But the situation is so embedded in who they are, in the culture around them, that it doesn't matter. It's just there. Quietly. Coldly. Waiting. And here's what's interesting about the current moment: YoungBoy is free to move around, but he's restricted by the beef. Durk is locked up, but his legacy is still powerful. It's like the beef has flipped. YoungBoy has the physical freedom, but he doesn't have the cultural freedom to perform where he wants. Durk has lost his physical freedom, but his name, his movement, his presence is still shaping what's possible in the streets. If you ask YoungBoy right now if he wants this beef to continue, he'd probably say no. He just got out of prison. He probably wants to focus on music. On his family. On moving forward. But he can't. Because the situation won't let him. Because venues won't book him in certain cities. Because fans will remember that he dissed Durk in Houston. Because the culture is still watching. If you ask Durk right now about the beef, he's probably thinking about his trial. He's probably thinking about the evidence against him. He's probably thinking about lawyers and court dates and the possibility of spending the next 30 years in prison. The beef with YoungBoy is probably the furthest thing from his mind. But it's still there. His crew still feels it. The streets still remember it. The current situation is basically a standoff. Neither side is making a move. Neither side is pushing forward with conflict. But neither side has actually resolved anything. It's just frozen. It's suspended. And everyone's waiting to see what happens next. Here's what could happen: YoungBoy could decide that he's done. He could say publicly that the beef is over and he's moving on. But then what? Does Durk confirm it? Does Durk's crew accept it? Or does that just look like YoungBoy backing down? Because that's how streets interpret things. Not as growth or maturity, but as weakness. Or maybe Durk's legal situation gets resolved and he ends up spending decades in prison. In which case, YoungBoy's completely free from the beef. But the culture would remember it. New artists coming up would know the story. It would be part of YoungBoy's legacy. He beat Durk, but only because Durk got locked up on unrelated charges. That's not victory. That's circumstance. Or maybe both of them could genuinely meet somewhere and talk things out. But that seems unlikely at this point. Too much has happened. Too much has been said. Too much has been invested in this conflict. What's really happening right now is that both of these artists are trapped. They're trapped by the culture. They're trapped by history. They're trapped by the fact that they're not just regular people. They're public figures in hip-hop. Everything they do is watched. Everything they say matters. And the beef, even when it's dormant, is always there. YoungBoy is free but limited. Durk is locked up but still powerful. The beef isn't active but it's absolutely still real. And the culture is waiting. Everyone's waiting. Waiting to see if they reconcile. Waiting to see if YoungBoy can overcome the cultural weight of this situation. Waiting to see if Durk's legal problems end the beef permanently or if it somehow continues even with him locked up. That's where this stands in 2026. Not hot. Not cold exactly either. Just frozen. Just trapped. Just two talented artists who can't escape the gravity of what exists between them, no matter how hard they try. The real question now isn't who wins the beef. It's whether they can ever actually move past it. And based on what we're seeing, based on the cancelled shows and the courtroom battles and the silence that's somehow louder than any diss track, the answer seems to be no. Not yet. Maybe not ever.